Welcome to the last session. And as we set us up, I think this is a Q&A based session, so it's a different kind of model here. But we know you, all of us want to go to the drinks quickly, so we'll, without any delay, I'll just introduce the next speaker. He's Clarence Wang, VP Head of Data Science at Dyne Therapeutics. And because he'll be talking about best practices and learnings from setting up a high performance compute cluster on the cloud. Is that right, Clarence? Interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah? Awesome. Okay. Over to you guys.
Hi, everybody. That's Clarence. I'm not Clarence. But thank you. No, change of plans last minute. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our cloud computing session. My name is Michael Reiner. I'm the CEO and president of RCH Solutions. With me today is Phil Echelier, our Chief Technical Officer, and Clarence Wang of Dyne Therapeutics. They're going to talk a little bit about themselves as we progress. So a little background on our company and who we are, and I'll be brief because we're limited for time. So RCH Services is a managed services provider with a specific focus in life sciences, as you can expect. So even more specific, we focus in early discovery and development areas. Our customers are big pharma, startups, and everybody in between. We've been in business for 30 years. We are most well known for our operational work, but now that's expanded quite a bit into the strategy area for two reasons. Number one, because what we've done in the past 30 years, we've been able to deliver and establish a great reputation. And secondly, because of things like the cloud, which is what we're here to talk about today. But before we do that, I'll let Phil introduce himself, talk briefly about what he does, and Clarence as well.
Hi. How you doing? Can you guys hear me? Yep. Yes. So my name is Phil Echelier. I'm the Chief Technical Officer at RCH. My history, my background, I'm a software engineer by training. After doing a stint of working with the U.S. Navy on avionics, got into Pharma in the 90s, and I've been hooked ever since. So love this work, and our company is all about solutions for life sciences. Again, as Michael said, it's we have a sweet spot in R&D, but we're all about enterprise everywhere. Clarence?
Hi, I'm Clarence Wang. I'm the VP Head of Data Sciences for Dyne Therapeutics. We're a small, rare muscle disease therapeutics company. My background is originally in chemistry, but I switched over into the computing side very, very early, traveling a path that included molecular modeling and transcriptomic profiling, data visualization, data management, and then always working closely with IT partners and outside folks that had the expertise in setting up computing systems that were appropriate for typically early stage R&D types of problems. And now my role at Dyne Therapeutics is to do that and to also lay out a roadmap for what the company will need in the long term for computing.
So as it was noted earlier, it's a Q&A session. I'm going to ask a few questions of Clarence, and the takeaways today will hopefully be lessons learned that Clarence will share with you, and then ideally you can walk away with some best practices you can apply to your daily work as well. We'll be here to field questions if we have time, and of course we can answer afterwards, or we'll be here at booth 116. So these are the areas we're going to talk about, and I'm going to jump right into. There's 4 specific areas. So Clarence, when we talk about big and small companies, you've worked in both and now you're back with a startup again. Can you talk about what it was like and experiences preparing scientists and their workloads for their journey from on-prem into the cloud?
Yeah, and I should say everything I talk about today is my own opinion. I'm not representing the positions or opinions of either my former or present employer. And I'm also speaking from the point of view of the scientist user, right? And partnering with folks like RCH and internal IT folks to address these things. So yeah, big and small. I mean, I started at a 70-person company and then got acquired by a 2,000-person company, which grew to 10,000 and got acquired by a 100,000 company. So really have seen the realities of trying to do a lot of things on your own, a lot of things with good internal partners, a lot of things with maybe not so good internal partners sometimes because their goals are different from you. So comparing the big versus small experience, really when a lot of the conversation these days is framed in digital transformation, but digital transformation is really a big company thing. Small companies don't need to transform because they get to start from cloud native to be able to set up new systems and greenfields, going right to the cloud-based systems. So that means there's not the burden, that arduous burden of migrating systems. And that's, obviously a big advantage. But the big company that needs to do that should try to think about small project-focused projects or use cases that will help them do this gigantic thing of transformation. Often in big companies, transformation is driven by non-research functions, but if research can come up with the value proposition for being able to do computing better, faster, at a larger scale in order to solve research questions that are on the goals of the research organization, then that's planning for more success. Now, that's what I mean by this last point of staying aligned to the core mission, right, in the case of the small company, or if it's not mission critical, then at least coming up with something that's clear what the benefit will be. And we'll talk a little bit about how to capture that benefit or communicate that benefit.
Clarence, let's comment on some of the common challenges. So I mentioned you worked in small biotech at Genzyme and then big pharma and Sanofi. What common challenges do you see amongst those companies?
Yeah, I think, having worked with you guys and Phil for so many years, we faced those challenges together. And one of the main ones is making sure that the company is comfortable with what's required for information security using high-performance computing in the cloud, that the data that goes into the cloud, how it goes in and out, who has access to it. The IT folks have to be very comfortable with the business processes that allow that to happen. And if they're not, then you need to find a partner that has already gone through that and understands what's possible for the different data types in R&D, biopharma R&D, and can augment any gaps on the IT side, in the institutional IT side, for the information security. And then for the scientists, users, of course, they want to be able to trust IT and their IT providers about that information security, but they're not going to provide the details or the specifications. They're going to say, you better have this taken care of. So that really puts responsibility on the IT folks and their partners to deliver that part of things, the back office information security, without it impinging strongly on the end user's experience. You have anything to add to that, Phil? Haven't seen it.
Real quickly, one of the things that are up there is your framework approach, and I have to really say that, the enterprise approach to public cloud, for example, is often stick everything in an account or stick everything in a prod account and a dev account. That just doesn't work in research. Having a modular, multi-account-based framework really is the way to scale and protect everyone from each other.
Thanks. Yeah, and that's obviously critical, especially in a big pharma environment where there's going to be multiple people that are going to be needing or using the infrastructure. In a small company, they may say, our mission is so clear, this is the one project, we got to solve it. Then they may not want to deal with all the additional, what they perceive as additional barriers. If you can do that in the back office without them feeling like it's a burden, they will thank you for it later, because there will be a later where they'll want to reuse the data or they'll want to share the data. And if you were able to help them execute on that, up front without them thinking it was a huge barrier, you're really going to come across well. I don't want to spend too much more time talking about the scope thing, but I did mention picking projects that are, key to the mission, but not too many of them. You can survey many of them and try to keep those in backup, right? You can use those as material when you need to pitch the success of your project, or you need to try to get new internal customers to take on or embrace your approach to using cloud resources for HPC or other workflows. But try to focus on the use cases that will deliver that mission, and expect in research that use case or the application area will change, and you will have to be able to think about designing ahead of time to accommodate the change. Sticking to frameworks and modularity helps a lot, but also understanding what the scientists, why they're shifting. They may be shifting in order to ensure the survival of the company to the next milestone. And so you cannot push back on that. You have to be able to adapt as well.
Great. Yeah, one of the many neat things about working in life sciences and scientific computing is we get to play with a lot of these new toys. Not necessarily play with them, right? You want to see if you can derive value from them. But there's a lot in the space of emerging technology, specific artificial intelligence, machine learning, analytics, security, and stuff like that. Can you share your perspective on that and where you see companies and people actually deriving value from them?
Yeah, I mean, we're all fortunate to be here at a time when we are seeing these advanced analytical methods, whether they're deep learning or more traditional machine learning methodologies, provide value. A couple of areas that I see that I would love to to exploit further is the generative models for molecular design, both on the small molecule side and on the biomolecular sequence side. The small molecule side, I think we're seeing publications already of people using a generative learning model to propose structures, small molecule structures that have the characteristics through a deep learning approach defined that match compounds that were already made and tested as active, as having the right binding characteristics or the right synthetic ability to synthesize, those kinds of things. And on the biomolecular side, what we're seeing is, for example, deep learning being able to solve protein folding problems, to take a stab at that, or to classify antibody structures. That's going to open things up from the biologics discovery side, right, where you don't have to synthesize trillion member libraries and then screen them all. You can count on the computing to assist you, to provide another stream of evidence or input to help you prioritize which ones to start assaying, which ones to scale up, and that sort of thing.
Finally, Clarence, I'm sure you'll agree that regardless of the size of the company and the scale, there's certain things that work really, really well. Can you share with us maybe 2 or 3 things that have worked well in the bigger small companies that you've worked at?
Yeah. One thing maybe that's not on here actually is developing a good support model that involves both the end users, knowledgeable end users that are interested to make sure that the support model for the computing systems is well thought out and closely coordinated. Make sure that team represents the users as well as the technical, operational, strategic folks. They don't have to be at the help desk level, but they do need to have a seat at the table. The idea of and being able to internally market, I mentioned before, using the learnings from what you've done to help the research execs know that there's value in investing in this stuff. And then getting people to come up to you and say, we've got this problem that we think is key to the mission, and we think you guys can help. So that's building out the next pitch. And finally, being able to count on experienced partners that have done this for other institutions. Unless you've done it yourself and you've got the playbook that you've already tested and battle hardened, which is not likely to be the case, or you don't have the resources, right? You don't have the complete team of skills that are needed. Counting on an experienced partner to do that. And then finally, just being able to make sure that your communications with your end users is open, keeping the use cases up to date, making sure that you're always connecting to delivering what they need as part of their research mission, the science mission, and not just, checking off the box that this system was stood up. If it's not being used and it's not delivering results, then nobody really wins there.
Great.
Phil, something to add to that? You were at the same table as me with many of them.
I just have to say that, the internal marketing thing is really, super key. And that's not just cloud. I mean, it's any new system that's going to go in. So you got to get buy-in, you got to keep people engaged, and keep the communication going.
Thank you, Clarence. Questions, anyone?
Let's give. Okay, we have time for maybe 2 short questions or 1 long question, and we'll start right here.
Thank you for that engaging conversation. My question is, when you have, on the research side, used or built some AI or ML model or algorithm that has targeted for a research outcome, has there been, I'm sure there has been, but opportunities to commercialize or productize that? And if so, what is the operational model from such environments into productization?
I won't be able to speak to being able to productize something that relies on AI or ML as a component. I mean, clearly in the early stage pharma area, there is a lot of standard machine learning applied to, for example, identifying and validating a transcriptomic biomarker signature. That's pretty well worked out. So that there's, I think, models for productizing that, turning it into a panel of a few genes or proteins by which either transcriptomic gene expression or proteomics can detect solidly, understand the variation, characterize that in real populations, and then specify it for a disease population with a treatment response. But the AI part, I think that still remains to be seen. And that's where I think a lot of folks that are here at this event should be thinking deeply is how can you really productize it, especially if previous experience with it has been more black box. And how can you characterize or validate a deep learning methodology that may give slightly different results depending upon the parameterization, depending upon the order of the input. You know, even if the same input goes in, if it's adapted at all, then you'll get slightly different results. That's, I think, a question for everyone here, for sure. Was that a long question or a short question?
You know, I'm sitting here debating. One very short question, if anyone has that very, and the reason I say this, there are drinks waiting in the exhibit hall. So that may.
Short question. Which drinks
short
are waiting for?
Anybody else? I have a very short question. Your booth number?
116.
116, and I understand you,
RCH.
116, and you have some materials here? Okay, all right, so, and some materials here. So let's go ahead and a great close for this afternoon session. I'd like to thank all of the speakers, both those in person as virtual as well. Let's give the entire afternoon a big thank you.
Thank you very much.